I'd like to call, good afternoon, everybody. Today is Tuesday, March 1st. I'd like to call the Subcommittee on Education and Instruction to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Representative Dixie, Representative Griffey, Representative Harris, Chairman Haston, Representative Hicks, Representative McKenzie, Chairman Reagan, Representative Warner, Representative Weaver, Chair Lady Movie, Chairman Sapicki.
Here.
Chairman Sapicki, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any personal orders today? I will take one today. You know, during the pandemic, we had a big issue with constituents across the state of Tennessee having issues with unemployment. And we fielded hundreds of calls, like most of you probably did, of people trying to get their unemployment claims. And there was one person that I could always go to at the department, and she always helped with a smile. Her name is Tia Zeeksy. She's in the back. And I want to say thank you for all the work you did for the people of Tennessee. Just remember, not significant on my bills. Okay, we have a calendar today. There's a lot of roles going on today, so we're just going to work through the calendar. First up is House Bill 2153 by Chairman Haston. Do I have a motion? Motion and second. Chairman Haston, you are recognized. Do you have an amendment on the bill, sir?
Yes, I have it as 14160, I believe.
14160. You have a motion and a second. Does it rewrite the bill?
Yes, it does.
Members, let's put this on the bill to get it in the proper form. All those in favor of adding 014160 to the bill, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Chairman, you are in good position right now. Go ahead and present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'm glad to carry this for the administration. What this does, this bill helps assure our students are going to have a inside track for all the technology jobs that are coming into our state. This bill does so in three key ways. It's one, it sets rigorous standards for computer science education. Two, it requires instruction and course offerings in computer and science for all Tennessee students. And three, it provides free professional development for Tennessee educators. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
You've heard the presentation on the bill. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Sponsor, for clarity in the record, let's make sure that the addition of computer science is not a total addition, that it's going to be put in place of a math or a science or something like that that's already required.
Chairman Haston, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really good question. Thank you for asking it. It will be a graduation requirement, and it would take the place of a fourth math. So there is a give and take there.
Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, on this bill, if high school is already doing this computer coursework, would their students be able to get credit under this program on this bill if enacted?
I believe so, but if I stand to be corrected, we do have some people from the department that could correct me on that if they're giving you the
Could we get a correction, perhaps?
Can we get a thumbs up?
It would. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Got it. Any other questions for the chairman? Chairman, I got a quick question for you. This is also extending down in the middle and elementary.
Yes.
Okay. With the thought process of possibly getting a substitute in high school, is there any thoughts on possibly in middle school making some exceptions for substitute required? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I will add, I'll go ahead and read some of this here that'll add some clarity to that. Every high school student must complete a full year of computer science. We mentioned that. Every middle school student must receive at least one course in computer science education, and every elementary school student must receive age-appropriate computer science education through their instructional program. So it will go on down.
You've heard the explanation on the bill. Any objection to calling the question? No objection seen. All those in favor of sending House Bill 2153 to full education, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Mr. Chairman, you're on to full ed.
Thank you, Chair and Committee.
Next up is House Bill 2833. That's been requested to roll 1 week by the sponsor. Representative Weaver, go ahead. I'm sorry, Warner. Close.
Is that the second or third row?
Ooh. This will be on when it gets calendared next week, that'll be on the third and final.
Thank you.
Ooh, long day. Next up is House Bill 1683 by Chairman Powers. Like hold on, I don't see him here. Let's roll him 3 spots, and we'll continue on without objection. Next up is House Bill 1865 by Representative Cassidy. Motion and a second. Is there amendment on the bill, sir? Is it drafting code 014067?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You've heard a motion on that in a second. Is it make the bill, sir?
It makes the bill.
Let's go ahead and put it on the bill. All those in favor of adding 014067 to the bill, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is in the proper position. Representative Cassidy, you are recognized.
What this legislation attempts to do is do what colleges do, which is allow young people to clip out of courses. The amendment limits it to English 1, integrated math 1, algebra 1, and foreign language.
And I assume this amendment was one you worked out with the department?
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, fantastic. Are there any questions on the bill? Chairman Dixie, go ahead.
Sorry, my daughter was calling me. Let me know they're heading home from school.
Take that call.
Quick question. In order to take this end of the course test, are there any benchmarks or requirements that say I've met this, so I'm eligible to take the test? Or can you just take the test, say, I could just walk in and say, all right, I'm ready to take the test?
Yeah, you can, at the beginning of your freshman year, and this is written for, again, English 1, integrated math 1, algebra 1, and foreign language. So this is the first step, I hoped, and I hope you guys take it further as it proves successful. But yes, so as a freshman, you would walk in and take the course at the beginning of the year. And if you passed this standard test, then you would get credit, and you would have completed English 1 with this test. And the goal is to get these young people that are seeking college or seeking post-high school and get them out of high school so they can start their careers.
All right. Just two questions.
Follow up?
Yeah, two questions. One is that same test that they're testing at the beginning, is it that same test that they'll test at the end of the course?
It would be, the department will format those tests. So the department was the ones that will make these tests.
Okay. He was talking to me and I forgot my second question, but
If you remember it, we'll come back to you. Okay.
Chairman, if it matters, he sits by me and just bugs you out of me because that's all right.
I think you were going to say your vocal support for this bill. By the way.
I can't, but if it comes back to me, will you?
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the sponsor. I like this bill in general, with one exception, and that's the foreign language requirement. Mm-hmm. I guess, from a math and an English standpoint, mm-hmm. there are things you need to know, sentence structure, things mm-hmm. like that. Whereas when you get to the foreign language, there's a lot of conversation that goes on during the course of a semester, and to have one test that may pick up on all the vocabulary that you mm-hmm. that you learn, I think would be a tall order. So that's the one piece that gives me consternation. Can you speak on why you included foreign languages in this?
I can, but if I would like, I'd defer to the chairman, who this came from him actually, and he has some very good story.
Thank you, Representative Cassidy. Representative McKenzie, we had an issue down in Murray County of a student from a South American country whose parents spoke fluent. They were both college professors. The child spoke fluent Spanish and could have probably taken and or given the test in Spanish. And so what the hope here is, teachers would recognize a student like that would have the opportunity to test out of this to be able to expand their educational career into something that they could pass probably on the first day and do it. So that was the whole premise behind the foreign language part. Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, and I appreciate that explanation. But I'll give a counter. I had a friend of mine that had middle school age children, and they worked for one of these 3-letter agencies and spent time in South America, and they immersed themselves in Spanish. They did a lot, and the students came home in high school, but they weren't prepared. They took Spanish, fully anticipating on blowing it out and making straight A's, but they hadn't, because they hadn't really learned a lot of the, again, they learned conversational Spanish, and I'll say the same thing will happen with this person that grew up in a household, but they don't understand that there's more to English, as we know from our English classes, than speaking the language. So, you know, there's just a lot more to teaching over a period of a semester, the foreign language than it is. There's vocation, there's vocabulary, but there's a lot more as well. So, how would you respond to that?
They would probably fail that test then. They would probably fail the test and would have had to take Spanish 1 under that scenario you just outlined.
Any other questions? On seeing none, we ready to vote on the bill? All those in favor of sending House Bill 1865 to full education, say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Representative, you're on the full education, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee.
Next up, House Bill, did Chairman Powers come in yet? No. Next up is House Bill 2468 by Chairman Baum. Chairman Baum, you recognized? Have a motion and a second. Do you have an amendment, sir?
Yes, I do.
Crafting code?
014266.
That is what we have. A motion on that and a second. Does it make the bill?
I think so. It makes substantive changes,
It
yes.
does rewrite the bill. Members, let's add this to the bill to get the bill in the proper position. All those in favor of adding Amendment 014266 to the bill, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You're in the proper position, Chairman Baum. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Sapicki. This is a bill that makes several changes to the code that governs charter schools. It's actually brought to me by the Tennessee Charter School Center that surveys different charter schools. I'd like to go through a few of the changes. Some of these changes seem relatively minor or benign. Some of them actually make the code a little stricter on charter schools. I think there's one change that might make things a little more lenient on charter schools. Maybe as a first example, when a charter school applicant doesn't plan to provide transportation services, this bill says they don't have to provide a transportation plan. I think that's fairly minor. They wouldn't be providing transportation services. As another example of a fairly minor change, if the LEA changes the grade bands that go into elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, they have to notify the charter school. There are a couple of these changes that I think probably make things a little stricter on charter schools. For example, if a charter school administrator or entity has multiple charter schools in a LEA, then when a charter school applicant for an additional charter school comes forward, the LEA must consider these other charter schools operated by this administrator. The administrator's other schools need to be considered when they apply for an additional charter school. An additional change is that this bill would cap the number of students who could attend a charter school from outside the LEA at 25%. That's a cap, no more than that. It allows charter schools to give additional weight to students who are at risk. When a charter school is oversubscribed, the charter school needs to use a lottery to figure out to determine who's going to be able to attend the charter school. This provision would allow at-risk students to have a little bit greater weight. And then here's maybe a last change that I'd like to highlight. If a charter school appears to be out of compliance on some issue, there are certain circumstances in which the LEA would need to provide the charter school with an intervention plan so that the charter school would have the opportunity to make the appropriate and necessary changes before the LEA revokes the charter school. That's only under certain conditions. There are other conditions under which the intervention plan would not have to be provided. One example would be fraud. If the charter school is suspected of fraud, they don't need an intervention plan before their charter would be revoked. I'm happy to answer questions about any of these provisions.
Members, you've heard the explanation of the bill. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Quick one for me is expanding charters to go outside the LEA. In a city like Memphis, would that allow a charter to go outside the state of Tennessee and bring students in from Arkansas or from Mississippi?
Well, that's a good question. The provision indicates that it would be capped at 25%. This bill doesn't change whether that can occur or not. It just says to whatever extent it can currently occur, we're going to put a cap on it. We're not going to begin allowing it to occur. The idea is we don't want a charter school to seek its application to be approved in a county that maybe has a friendlier governing body and then locate right on the other side of the county line in order to get students from a neighboring county whose application process they didn't go through. If you cap the number of students that can go to a charter school from outside the LEA at 25%, then it limits a charter school from being able to do that.
Members, you've heard the explanation. Any other further questions? Representative Griffey?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing the legislation. Question, why would we allow the charter school to pull students outside of the LEA district? Aren't they supposed to be serving the district?
Chairman Bauer.
My understanding is that they already can do that. This just puts a cap. It's not providing them with the ability or permission to begin recruiting from outside the LEA. This just places a cap. No more than 25% of the students can come from outside the LEA.
Follow up.
Thank you. And if the charter school is going to reach capacity, does that take into account the 25% that's outside the LEA, or is it based upon the capacity of children that are in the LEA district?
I believe students from outside the LEA can only be admitted if the charter school is not otherwise at capacity. If the charter school is at capacity, they can't take students from outside the LEA, and that's when this lottery process is used to determine which students of the oversubscribed sample get to attend.
Thank you.
Chairman's privilege. Does this process reset every year? As these children are in second grade and they go to third grade, does the application process reset so that if there's more students from the LEA that want to attend that charter, then those out of LEA charter students, would they be now not be able to attend? So it's only available on open seats after everybody in the district has the opportunity to attend?
Chairman, I don't specifically know the answer to that question, but I can't imagine students having to go through the lottery every year. I would imagine once they're enrolled in the charter school, maybe if that occurs in second grade, I would think they could continue, that they wouldn't be, they wouldn't have to go through this lottery every year. Otherwise, they might be in a different school every other year. I don't think that's the way it currently is.
Fair enough. Chairman Dixie, I think you had a question.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you explain, you said that if a applicant has other charter schools in the LEA, that it would be taken in consideration. Could you explain like how that would work?
Sure. Let's suppose that a charter school administrator or entity, governing entity, has multiple charter schools. Maybe they've already got 2 charter schools in the LEA, and they want to open a third, and so they have to go through the application process through the local school board. This bill says that local governing body must consider the performance of the other charter schools administered by this entity when they're evaluating the latest charter application. I suppose they currently perhaps could do that anyway, but this legislation says that they must consider the performance of other charter schools administered by the charter school entity when that entity has applied for an additional charter school.
Representative McKenzie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So going back to the out-of-district process, it says that that tuition may be charged. So that's not a guarantee. They don't at some point they don't have to charge tuition. Is that correct? It's optional.
I think they do have to charge tuition. This bill says for those out-of-district students that the tuition that is charged must go to the LEA instead of directly to the charter school. Currently, that's not explicit in code. That's another one of those provisions that I think, if anything, is sort of puts up guardrails for the charter school. It says that those tuition dollars must go to the LEA. They do not go directly to the charter school.
I think, and so so my question is, when that money comes in, does it follow the same funding formula? Like, I know that the LEA gets to keep a portion of it for, like administration of the benefits and all that other stuff. Does this tuition that comes into that receiving LEA gets funneled the same way, if you know what I'm asking?
This bill would not change how that money is divided or allocated. It just ensures that the money goes first to the LEA instead of somehow being routed directly to the charter school as a first destination, which I think that's what the LEA would want, the money going to them.
Okay. Any other questions for the bill sponsor? Did you have a question? Okay. Question on the bill. Question's been called. Any objection to the question? There, none being said, let your yeses be yeses and your noes be noes, please. All those in favor of House Bill 2468 say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. No. Ayes have it. You're on the full.
Thank you.
Next up is House Bill 1325 by Representative Hardaway. You have a motion? Motion and a second. Is there an amendment on the bill, sir?
No, sir. It's coming to you just as it is.
We have an untimely filed amendment?
Yes, oh, yes, sir. We do have an amendment. Untimely, it merely updates the effective date.
And I assume it's, well, hold on. I assume it's 014445?
I think that is that the amendment number or the?
That's the drafting code? At the bottom right, 014?
Yes.
That is the right one. We have a motion and a second on it. It's an untimely filed amendment. That is to consider the amendment. We need a two-thirds majority to be able to consider this untimely filed amendment. All those in favor of this untimely filed amendment say aye to hear it. Aye. Opposed, no. We will now consider it. Let's add this to the bill. Motion and a second to add this to the bill. Any objection to the question? None, seeing none. All those in favor of adding Amendment 014445 to the bill say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You're in the proper position, Representative. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, committee members, for agreeing to bring this bill into the correct form. If you think you've seen this bill before, you probably have seen a version of it before. This whole idea was brought to me by the Melrose High School students and the White Station High School students in Memphis, Tennessee. These are students who were concerned that they and others in their position would not have access to driver's ed. We all know the benefits of driver's ed, whether we took it or our children took it, or for some of us grandchildren. The purpose of the bill, the first bill that we brought in the 111th General Assembly, was a bit more aggressive. It actually created an opportunity for the LEAs to do it and to look to Title I funding to do so. We discovered that there was some question about whether Title I funding could be used for those purposes. So this bill merely creates an opportunity for the different departments who are listed, the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, TSAC, Tennessee Student Assistant Corporation, the Department of Education, of course, the Department of Human Services, would all collaborate with OREA, the Office of Research and Education Accountability, to figure out how to get driver's ed back into our schools so we'll have more competent and confident students driving on our streets.
You've heard the explanation on the bill. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Representative Griffey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor, for bringing this bill. I think it's a smart approach to let's get some information, see whether drivers are able to help. I would simply throw out, maybe you might want to consider amending it that we also include firearm safety for them to study that and see whether adding that course to part of the driver's ed might result in more gun safety in Tennessee and students to be aware of guns, just how dangerous they are and what it takes to responsibly own and use them. So those are my thoughts. I'm going to support your bill.
Thank you, sir.
That would be a great amendment, but it might be outside your caption right now.
Yes, sir.
So,
And since he brought it up, may I comment, Mr. Chairman?
No, we're off the bill. I know the wares of doing that and dangers. Question's been called. Any objection to the question? Upon seeing none, all those in favor of sending House Bill 1325 on to full ed, say aye. Opposed, no. You're on your way.
Thank you,
sir.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members.
Members, we have Chairman Powers here. Let's roll back to House Bill 1683. Got a motion and a second. There are no amendments, correct?
Correct.
Chairman Powers, you're in a proper position. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I didn't give you a promotion.
I hear
Yeah, and committee. This is the time release bill that we have been working on for many years. Back in 2015, we actually passed a time release course, and then in 2019, we come before the body and we were able to we asked for a full credit for this time release course away from the school. We got a half a credit, which was great, kind of a compromise at that time. I'm sure everybody wanted to kind of see how it was going and what we were doing. In 2020, we actually came and asked for a transportation bill to remove the liability of anybody transporting the students away from the school to take the time release course. This is nothing new. We've been doing this for 7 years now, and other states have already implemented this: Georgia, Ohio, Florida, South Carolina. Matter of fact, there's 11 states that have the time release course. So all we were wanting to do was talk to you about possibly raising the credit to one full credit for that 1 hour away from school where they take the time release course. And this is already a statewide application. It's already permissive, not mandatory. Any county can do it, any school system can do it, and it all has to go through the local LEA. So at this time, I would like to just take a moment, and we have a couple of people that are speaking on it today that are from that school. And so if you don't care, I would like to have them come forward and talk just a little bit about what they're doing at the school.
Without objection, we're going to go out of session. I have Stephanie Lloyd, Lynn Ray, and Zach Lloyd. If you'll step up to the chairs in front. Since you're all going to share time here, we'll give you a total of five minutes, okay? So if you look at me, I'll let you know how far you're along, okay? If you'll just introduce yourself and then go ahead and tell us what you want to talk about.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Stephanie.
Make sure your red light's on.
There we go.
There you go.
Hello, committee. My name is Stephanie Lloyd, and I am the teacher and program director at the Campbell County Christian Learning Center.
I'm Lynn Ray. I'm the pastor at Hillcrest Baptist Church. I'm also a board member of the CCLC and a former public school administrator for 20 years, and before that I was a public school teacher. So.
My name is Zach Lloyd. I'm a pastor at East Lafayette Baptist Church, also a board member for the Campbell County Christian Learning Center.
Go ahead.
So our understanding is that when this bill initially passed in 2019 to allow for half an elective credit, we were told that the representatives wanted to see how it went and determine the academic rigor before allowing a full academic credit for religious release time. Since then, we started, when I began teaching at the CLC in the fall of 2019, we had 15 students. We currently have 45 students, so our program has increased since then. And as Representative Power said, all of this goes through the local school board level for approval before any credit is granted. My students have an academically rigorous coursework that we go through. We present the school board with state standards, related standards in subjects of reading, writing, speaking and listening skills, as well as social studies. They analyze texts. They determine central ideas based on the biblical text they're reading. They support their interpretations with textual evidence, and they learn how to participate in collaborative discussions regarding their personally held religious views. We have no desire to religiously indoctrinate anyone. This bill would allow for any religious release time program to exist if they can meet those standards in order to meet the standards for the school board to approve that credit.
Okay,
Button, your light.
I'm sorry, yeah, sorry. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Subcommittee, for allowing us to have the time to present our case. I was the first teacher for this class back in 2018, and so I have that point of view as Ms. Stephanie does, and then I also have the point of view of a public school administrator and how this would enhance my student body. And so what we're asking for here today is not a stretch, but just for equal and fair treatment for full credit. As Ms. Stephanie said, this is a very rigorous class. Some of her students have even, I wouldn't say complained, but they've said this is one of the hardest classes that we take, you know, and why can't we have a full credit? But you know, as an administrator, you have to weigh things and make sure that they're that you are in line. And so why would I want my students to attend this class? And so there's data out with schoolministries.org, and you can check my, proof check me on this, but students that attend these release time classes in other states, administrators are finding that they come back to the school, they score higher on standardized testing, they are better behaved, their attendance increases. Overall, they're a better citizen, and so we're pleased with that, and I would be pleased with that as an administrator. As a teacher in that class, I taught worldview, and so not only the Christian worldview, but all other worldviews were the majority of them. I've had students from Japan, from Thailand. We've had students that were agnostic and atheist, and from a variety of views. And we feel that we've enhanced at least their knowledge and vision of what a Christian worldview is in that class. And so it was beneficial all the way around. The attendance in this class is growing. We started out with a very small class, 18 students the first year. We're up to about 45 students in each class per semester. It grows each year. Okay, it's hard for a Baptist minister to keep.
You got 1 minute left. Go ahead.
Thank you. No, well, thank you, Lynn. I appreciate that.
You should always go first.
I know, for sure. No, just very quickly, I come just on behalf of the students. We have, again, had students there that had discussed the pros of this class. Again, not all of them are looking at it from a religious background. They're looking at it just from a standpoint of wanting to know more and learn. And to see them be discouraged by this being a half credit, it's really hard for us to kind of explain that to them. So we're just wanting to, again, make that equal for them, to have an opportunity in whatever elective class that they take, that they're offered there at the high school, that they have that opportunity to have that full credit as they take that class. So,
Members, you've heard the testimony. Do you have any questions? Representative Dixie? Chairman Dixie, sorry about that.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for being here. I just want to take this time to actually ask you some questions of some boots on the ground on how this really happened. So, where's your class? The class setting, is it on the campus of the school or is it outside of the school?
It's on one of the perimeters that we have to meet is it has to take place off campus, which our campus, the church campus, is adjacent to the school. We're within just 100 feet or so of the school sidewalks. So the students walk to our campus, and we have a family life center that we've converted into classrooms, and that's where it takes place. So.
Okay, I was just curious at like travel time and things like how was that built into their class schedule?
For us, it's about 4 minutes, maybe, travel time, walk, and they walk. And in inclement weather, we have a shuttle that picks them up, and they're there in 3 or 4 minutes. So,
thank you.
When the children are transferring back and forth, who provides security for those children?
the teacher and the administrator or director of the learning center. Also, I'm not sure about now. I've been out of the classroom for a while. Does the administrator from the school, they're releasing them there on the sidewalk with them as they're coming up?
I don't think on.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank all three of you all for coming today and providing that information to us. And I just can't help but think how important it would be if we had a credit every year, 9 through 12, a full credit for students to get involved with religion and learn about religion, not just Christianity, but all the world's great religions, and how many of our problems in society today are mirror the problems we have in our school as far as bullying and problems with drug use and inappropriate sexual behavior and stuff. And I just can't help but think that our schools and our communities in Tennessee and our nation wouldn't be better if we had this course available to all our high school students and they could actually take the class on the high school campus, because you're not just focusing on Christianity, it's a number of religions that you're actually learning about. So I just wanted to express my thoughts and appreciation to you all for being here and what you're doing. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for coming to testify today. We really appreciate it. Thank you for what you do. Members, we're back in session, back on the bill, House Bill 1683. Chairman Powers, you want to add anything?
Please, just wanted to mention too that there are some other schools that this was passed and it was a statewide application. Farragut in Knoxville, they're forming a board right now to do that, and like I said, everything has to go through the local LEA, but they have had their own board of directors. So there are other schools that are starting to come across the state that are hopefully it'll spread to all 95 counties.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions. Well, I guess a general statement. You know, this is, in theory, a good thing. When you have a county that's kind of monotheological in its makeup, when we spread this across the state, I don't think we'll get there. And it's also a good thing, as testimony led, the campuses are kind of adjoined. You know, that's what they kind of designed in Utah with the Mormons. Every campus has a Mormon center next to it, but that's how they kind of intrinsically grew. And there's some rural counties, you know, especially some rural areas in Knox County that are that way, like a Farragut. But that's not the case all over. My question, have you heard about the pilot program that they tried in Knox County at Inskip Elementary?
No, I haven't, and I'm familiar with Inskip, and I know where it is and everything. Just one comment on that. We do have, and that's what we passed on the transportation bill a few years ago, that if they, like a school bus driver wanted to use his own time, you know, independent contractor to transport the students back and forth, and that removes any kind of liability from them. So if it's more than just a short distance, you know, that they can provide transportation for them. But no, I'm not familiar with the Inskip program.
Representative McKenzie.
Yeah, and so with that one, it never happened, thank goodness. But they had a atheist group, for lack of a better term, that petitioned to pull the kids out. and like I said, they had a pilot program with a Baptist center. And so that just, again, it was messy. And so when we try to spread this across our very, very diverse state, that just concerns me. As a Christian, that concerns me. So it's one of these unintended consequences. So I see in the write-up here, you call it religious moral instruction. Are there limits to that? Is there a curriculum that these places are going to only talk about this and nothing outside of that?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
The local LEA, they have to approve any type of curriculum that comes before them, and they develop those guardrails that you're talking about. So the local LEA has to approve that curriculum for them. So that's one reason that you're not going to have, I don't think, any kind of radical groups that are going to try to form, because the locals would have to approve it.
Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor, for this bill, which I think is a very, very good bill. I just had a question. Participation in the class is strictly voluntary. Nobody's forcing these students to do that. And then follow up.
Follow up, go ahead.
Will it be a half credit to 1 credit for the entire high school 4-year period, 9 through 12, or 1 credit per each year, 9, 10, 11, and 12 grades? Or do you know how that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's just 1 credit per semester. Yeah,
Okay.
Depending on how many courses they have available. I think right now they have 2, developing 3, but it's just 1 credit per semester.
Thank you for bringing it. I just can't help but think this would be really good if everybody learned the golden rule about how you want to be treated, just like you want others to treat you. And I think this is an important bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for the bill sponsor? Question's been called. Any objection to the question? Seeing none, all those in favor of sending House Bill 1683 to education full, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. You're on the full ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you,
Next up is
committee.
House Bill 0103. This has been rolled by Representative Ogles. However, this has to go to the special calendar. This is past his normal rolls. That'll go to the special calendar without objection. So be it. Next up is House Bill 1964 by Chairman Rudd. Chairman Rudd, you are recognized. Have a motion and a second.
And we have an amendment on the bill.
Is it timely or untimely, sir?
I believe I filed it in time.
What's your drafting code?
14533.
It's untimely filed. Members, we need to consider. Thank you. Second. All those in favor of considering Amendment 014533 say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay. Does this make the bill?
It does not make the bill, but it amends a substantial part of the bill. It cuts out Section 3 and 4, and it also deletes Section 1A. It deletes during and after school hours.
Let's go ahead and get it on the bill in the proper position. I have a motion. Motion for the addition to the amendment. Second. Any objection to adding this to the bill? None seen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You're in the proper position. Go ahead, Chairman.
The amendment lowered the fiscal from 66 million to not significant. So minor change there.
Very impressive. Very impressive.
This is the recommendations of ERIC, the Education Recovery and Innovation Commission. As you know, when we had remote learning during the pandemic, most of us had bad experiences with that, but it did discover a tool that we have. And during natural disasters or incidents where schools are temporarily shut down, like a flood or fire or something, we can use remote learning to teach our children during that time. What this instructs is a drill at least once a year for the local LEA, and the LEA shall address these issues discovered during the drills and correct them, and it also directs the Department of Education to assist them in doing these drills or drill.
You've heard the explanation. Any questions? Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you expand on what constitutes a drill, please?
A drill would be to carry out a remote learning. Either that would be up to the local LA and the Department of Education to decide. It could be like on a holiday or a special session where they're at home, they're going to run through actual remote learning classes to make sure the system's working. It wouldn't be an all day. It would just be a test to make sure everything's working and students are signed on. Again, it would be up to the local LEA and the department to decide whether they do it during hours or after hours or on a holiday.
Clarification on this. This is a technology test.
Yes.
This is not where we're going to go out, we're going to go virtual for a day and we're going to teach the whole day at home. This should be a technology test for the LEA to make sure they have the capacity in the event if we have to go virtual, they'd be able to do it.
Yeah, that's why it's not an all-day test. It's just a test that set up
Technology.
certain students and test the system.
Any other questions for the bill sponsor? Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. So this will be thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be a requirement for all school systems, whether they're remote or not, or is it a prerequisite for going remote?
It's my understanding, and the chairman can correct me, it's my understanding if the school system has the ability for remote learning, they would carry out this test. If they don't carry it out.
Follow up?
Could you explain what the change was that took it from 66 to non-significant?
What we had included unintentionally in there is it was saying basically that if it was instructing, if a school did not have the technology, they were to purchase it or have it, and this does not require that. This only applies to test the remote learning if the school system already has that capability.
Can I get clarification there, Chairman? Representative McKenzie, what was removed was, in the original bill, it was requiring that LEAs would have to purchase textbooks and curriculum that would be virtual also. That's why the tremendous fiscal note. That'd be a huge burden to our local LEAs right now. Well, we wanted to make sure that in the event we did go virtual again for some reason, the technology was in place that it would be able to be seamless for our students. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Representative Dixie, or McKenzie, sorry.
Thank you. So I think I heard you say that this bill is not for an actual in-person learning session. Is that correct?
Chairman.
They would do a test. They could have a certain number of students go home and test it. It's not for like carry out a real class, an all-day class session. It's just to how they would promulgate the rules, working with the Department of Education, and how they'd go home and test. It could be a certain number of students. It could be a certain number of classes that would test this. And like I said, it could be during hours or it could be after hours.
Thank you.
Chairman Dixie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I've noted when we went to virtual schools, we had a lot of issues with kids not having access to internet or the capabilities to sign on. I think, how are we going to address that? Because I think that if we just have a test of the ones who actually have it, but I think that maybe we're putting the cart before the horse on this one. I think we need to make sure that everyone has access to the adequate, high quality internet before, because if not, are you really giving it a true test of the system, a good stress test, if everyone doesn't have access to high quality internet?
Well, that's not really a part of the bill. This is to make sure the school system's ability to deliver it is correct. It doesn't address broadband. This is just making sure that the actual remote learning, that the school is able to broadcast it and carry the classes out.
Follow up.
I guess that's my question. How do we know that it's working if we don't know if we actually have the system in place to carry it out?
Well, like it said, it says in the bill that the drill, whatever shortcomings or problems that the tests discover, they are to address as best they can. Of course, it's presently, not now, the responsibility of school systems to purchase broadband. We've been trying to take care of that with grants, but that's not a part of this bill. This is simply a test of the existing school systems' remote capabilities.
As we move forward, we probably need to make sure that we do everything we can to roll out broadband to as many students as we can in the state of Tennessee. And I think working together, we probably all agree that that is a priority that we need to probably take on. So, any other questions for the bill sponsor? Questions being called. Any objection to the question? Upon seeing none, all those in favor of sending House Bill 1964 to full ed, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You're on the full ed, sir. Next up is House Bill 535 by Chairman Hawk. That's going to be rolled 1 week. Next up is House Bill 2312 by Representative Griffey. That's rolled 1 week. Next up is House Bill 2106 by Representative Hakeem. Have a motion and a second. Is there an amendment on the bill? No, sir. We have a motion and a second. You are in the proper position. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. What I'm presenting to you is a desire to broaden the knowledge and understanding of our young people of our shared history here in America. And one area of that I think needs to be enhanced is knowledge of contributions by African Americans in our state and in our nation. What this bill attempts to do is to require appropriate age instruction between grades 5 through 8. And this would not be done next year. The effort, the attempt is to look at school year 25-26 to afford time for any changes that need to be made in regards to study materials or books and things of that nature. I think that what this does is limits what may be some expense of trying to turn around and do something today, next year, by doing that. I'm of the opinion that Black history intersects every period of American history. Every war that this nation has had, going back to the Revolutionary War, Black people have participated in those wars on behalf of our nation. And again, what we're attempting to do is to share with students in general some of the positive contributions, not only to our state, our nation, and the world of people of color, but we're talking about African Americans. As examples, the Tuskegee Airmen, scientists like George Washington Carver, and one name that we may not necessarily be familiar with, Kissimmee Corbett. She's a scientist who worked and developed one of the vaccines dealing with the problem we've had the last couple of years dealing with COVID. And another example would be Madam C.J. Walker, who was the first female self-made millionaire in our country. And what it does to the existing bill that is presently in place is to change one area where it says that this should be taught in our school and make it shall be taught. And this would be from grades 5 through 8. And again, the effort is to broaden all of our history, heritage, and understanding. And I believe it'll bring about a greater appreciation and understanding of one another as we present something of this nature to our children. Mr. Chairman, that's what I have at this time, sir.
Members, you've heard the explanation on the bill. Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, sponsor, for bringing this bill forward. I'll share a personal story. As it relates to me and my career, I'll never forget it. In 8th grade, Mrs. Stooksbury was a U.S. history teacher, and it wasn't in the curriculum, but she pulled out a week and just had some training on prominent Black inventors, and I didn't realize that the whole concept of refrigeration for its chemical that was Frederick Jones had that, and that piqued my interest. I'd never heard of someone looking like me being in science, and that was the start. That was the spark that kind of led me to dig in and read the encyclopedias and see what's going on, and end up being a career in science. So thank you for bringing this, because it's just, you never know what that one thing is. It may be, it may be science, it may be history, it may be athletics, but just to put as much in front of our students as we can to talk about the whole, fabric of this great country is a good thing. So thank you for bringing this.
Good response. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When we look at some of the concerns and problems we have with our young people, it may be crime, it may be other areas in their lives, dealing with ACEs, I think if people have an appreciation and understanding of themselves and can share that through their actions with others, I think it bolsters what we talk about as being, a community of Americans. And just for a few seconds, if you would permit me, talk about a personal stories. Without my faith in God and having some degree of history, heritage, and culture, as they say, where would I be? And so I'm saying if we want to stem some of the negative things that we see from some of our citizens, I think it's important for people to be able to see themselves in our history, because we're all in this together.
Representative, you and I have been talking about this for almost 2 years now.
Yes, sir.
And I will help you any way possible to get these standards, because the names you spoke of are people that everybody should aspire to for the lives that they've led. I've struggled with this one because of the standards. We know that if we put something in, something's got to come out. We are right now in the full committee tomorrow, we're going to be confirming members of the standards review for social studies and science. I think we have to be very cautious here, and I will do my best to help you get these names and other names inserted into the standards, not only in 5 through 8, but in 9 through 12. There should be these names to be talked about too. We open the door for issues with Asian history, Hispanic history, Native American history, Irish, European, German. All these play vital roles in the development of our country, and I would want to make sure that we had an opportunity to explore all these different cultures that made the United States what it is. And because we're so close to the adoption period, I'm very cautious about adding this in right now, and I'm just telling you up front, this is why I'm not going to vote for this bill, is I want to make sure that we have the ability to not only just insert something in particular, but saturate the entire social studies and history that's being taught to our children of all the nuances of all the people that made up our country. So I just want to let you know that, okay? Representative Griffey?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor, for bringing this bill. A couple other names that popped to my mind that everybody may not know, but great Black Americans, Dr. Ben Carson, Judge Bernice Donald, who was the first Black bankruptcy judge, and I believe in the nation. Odell Horton Sr., the first Black district judge in Memphis, who I clerked for as a law clerk for a number of years. So absolutely, African American history is part of American history. And America has a history. We're not always perfect, but we are Americans, and we've got to bring everybody together on that. My question, it kind of mirrors what the chairman's concerns are. I'm wondering why require the Department of Education to do it rather than the State Board of Education to put it, the Black history in the part of the standards?
Representative McKee?
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what we're trying, I believe it's the Department of Education that would help set the standards for curriculum and what would be in there with the LEAs. I believe I'm correct on that, and that's why we have it in there in that manner. Either way would be fine, with me.
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I tend to agree with the chairman. I think we already have a requirement for the state board to include multicultural diversity in their framework, and there needs to be a balancing because you're going to have other minority groups wanting their history as well. So I tend to think that we ought to take that approach rather than just mandating it to the Department of Ed. And plus, I'd rather keep the Department of Ed a little bit separated out from what's going into the curriculum. Leave some distance between those two entities. So thank you.
Response?
I would only respond that we've had on the books for years what we should do, and nothing has materialized. And I guess what I'm asking is that would this be a start in the effort to bring about that broader history that we're talking about, instead of doing it all at one time, so to speak, waiting to do it all at one time.
Chairman Dixie,
Oh,
I can come back.
Okay, thank you. I just didn't want to jump in front of my friend there. I think that you know, we hear arguments on both sides. I think it's one of those things that if not now, when? And it's one of those things we keep kicking the can down the road. At what point do we just do it? At this time, the chairman just made a mention that right now we're getting ready to set the standards. So if now isn't the time to make a inclusive history of all of our history, not their history, not my history, not your history, American, United States history. And when do we make time to do that? If not now is not the time, when is the time? And I think that the temperature in this country, especially in Tennessee, even in this House chamber, is so high right now and it's so divisive. At what point do we come together and say, you know what, let's forget what's going on around the country, around the world. Let's do what's best for Tennessee. Let's do what's best for everyone, for our students. Let's make this all-inclusive, and let's set the standard here. It seems like we are focusing on one particular segment of this. Yes, I think that the premise is, he said, to teach Black history, but at the end of the day, it's to teach all history, and it needs to be rewritten so that it's all-inclusive. Every one of us has learned from kindergarten to 12th grade, and probably some in college as well, about American history, and we don't know some of the other important facts that made us what we are. You know, every one of us right here knows who Neil Armstrong is. But who knows who Katherine Johnson is? Most people probably don't even know who that is. But that's an important part, who made Neil Armstrong what he is to get him where he was. So let's go back. Right now is the time for us to get it right. Let's not kick the can. And like I said, this is just a start. This is just the beginning. It's going to take a long road. You know, we can't write curriculum in 3 weeks or 2 weeks. But I think this is a start where we can open the door, move the ball down the field, and then next year we can continue to expand. But at some point, we have to dig our foot in the ground and say, we're going to be responsible for this. We're going to take this to the next level because we want to see us come together, and we're tired of being divided. We want to be united. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me a chance to speak.
Members, just remember, on our full committees tomorrow, we'll be confirming members to the State Board of Education, and we'll be confirming members to the Social Studies and Science Curriculum Standards Review. So if this bill does not make it out of here, I would suggest that we carry on that conversation tomorrow with those individuals, tasking them with the chore of what we're trying to do here today, to make sure that when we do get those standards back and our students start to learn social studies, they do learn about the diversity in Tennessee. And I'll be happy to help you on that one. Representative Griffey?
I was just going to follow up, Representative. It sounded like you seem to indicate that we're not teaching any Black history in our social studies in our high school or junior high grades right now. Surely that's not the case.
I'm sure there's some degree that is being taught, but I think right now, quite frankly, I guess some teachers are afraid to move beyond what has been taught previously. And I think what we're trying to do is to open that door for that broader, fuller piece of American history. If you don't know anything of good that I have done, it's difficult for you to see me as having any value, any worth. And so that's why we're asking.
Last follow-up. This is the last follow-up, and I appreciate everything you've said. And I would just, because there's a limited time in the history, they're going to have to, some subjects going to be included, not included. I just kind of wonder, if you want to change this, that let's see, if you want to include the State Board of Education to require inclusion of Black history, African American history in our schools as part of the curriculum, I can support that. I'm concerned about putting it on the Department of Education. So, but other than that, I would support it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Sponsor, I support the concept behind your bill. We'll start with that. At the expense of giving my gray hair away here, I served with members of the Tuskegee Airmen, and I have nothing but the highest respect for them and cannot do anything more than praise them. So while I support your concept, my concern rests with the issues that have been brought up. We have tasked the State Board of Education, not the Department of Education, to create standards. And that is my concern with your approach, not the concept. For that reason, sir, I'm going to have to say that in keeping it in line with the standards that we already require, if you could modify your bill to put the State Board in charge rather than the Department of Education, or at the suggestion of the chair, bring this up in our confirmation hearings, I think I would be more than happy to line up and support you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
There's nothing in my mind magic about the Department of Education doing this. If it was acceptable or feasible, Mr. Chairman, I would be accepting that modification for the Board of Education. I mean the State Board of Education to do it. Yes, sir.
Members, I'm getting a feel here that we're trying to help the sponsor out. Is that a nod of the heads? Okay, we're going to take a 2-minute recess.
Yes, sir.
We are back in session. Members, I believe the sponsor of the bill is going to make a request of the committee, and then hopefully all those necessary parties will get together and we'll see you next week, okay?
Yes, sir.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I request at this time that we roll the bill for 1 week.
We will roll this for 1 week without objection. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Chairman and members.
House Bill 2057 by Chairman Reagan is rolled 1 week. Next one is House Bill 1860 by Chairman Haston. Chairman Haston, you're recognized. Have a motion and a second. I believe we have an untimely filed amendment.
Yes, sir.
Is it drafting code 014515?
That is correct.
Okay, we need to take, you've heard a motion and a second to consider this untimely filed amendment. Any objections to that? So on seeing none, all those in favor of considering this, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Being considered, you want to give us a brief explanation?
Yeah, the amendment does make the bill.
Let's add it to the bill. Motion to add the amendment. Have a motion and a second to add this to the bill. Any objection to this? None seeing. All those say aye in favor? Aye. No? Okay, you're in the right position. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the TSBA and the department for working on getting this language to me and getting this final amendment. What this bill does is allow teachers the ability to use formative tests like benchmark assessments as a component in their evaluations. Right now, Tennessee only allows teachers to utilize results from summative assessments within their evaluation component. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Members, you've heard the explanation. Are there any questions for the sponsor? Upon seeing none, is there any? Oh, you got one. I'm sorry. Chairman Dixie.
Actually, this may be a question for you, and I don't know if you can answer this or not. But I'm just wondering because I'm not really sure. But I think that it seems like each district have different measurements for teachers, especially evaluations. Is there a standard where if I had a teacher that apples to apples evaluation, if I had one in Washington County, that would be the same in Tipton County? Is there out there is that in place now, or does it differ from district to district?
Without objection, let's get that answer because the DOE has wanted to speak today, so they're here to answer. I'll answer that question for you. Let's go out of session. If you'll introduce yourself.
Charlie Bufalino with the Department of Education. So I believe I'll try to restate your question. You're asking about apples to apples comparisons in terms of the performance for teachers in these areas. So what we are talking about with this bill as amended is one section of our teacher evaluation system, and that is the achievement portion. So we have under current law, and I know there's a piece of legislation that's moving that would change this slightly, we have 50% for observation, 50% for achievement, which is split into two categories, 35% for TVOS and growth, and 15% for these achievement metrics. So the apples to apples comparison is really in that growth component because that's based off the same assessments, the TCAP statewide, and that's going to be the same across grade bands in the state. There are several different metrics currently that can be selected locally to be used as that achievement metric. It's the teacher's choice in consultation with a school building level principal under what those are. What this legislation as amended would do in terms of our reading of it is it would clarify and make it very clear in code that some of our new assessments, which are the state-approved benchmarks and the universal reading screeners, could be part of that list that could be selected from. But for achievement specifically, that 15, it does tend to vary pretty widely across the state.
Answer your question for you?
The answer is yes and no.
For this, yes, Chairman Reagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Bufalino, or Dr. Bufalino, the issue that I have with this is, well, as one of my colleagues used to say, if you're smart enough to be in front of us, we can call you doctor. But anyway.
Promotions everywhere.
The question that I have revolves around the point you just made, and that is the ability to compare across the state. I have long said if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, and if you can't manage it, you can't improve it. The measurement piece of that, though, is critical because, as one of my colleagues said, apples to apples is important. If we allow those different bits and pieces to be used, we are no longer comparing apples to apples. So I have some concern on that. Would you like to address that?
Go ahead.
Charlie, not Dr. Bufalino with the Department of Education. No, I think it's a fair point, and it's a little bit of a balancing act with that multi-tiered measurement approach. That's why you hear the department and the administration often be so adamant about preserving that TVOS component. And candidly, we had some concerns with this bill as initially filed because it would have jeopardized that, right? In that it would have allowed some of these other measures to be used to calculate growth, which is not something we can even currently do under our evaluation system. But if we can, it eliminates that ability to do it on that critical value added portion of this. Those achievement metrics and using multiple of them have been in place since we've had an achievement portion of that. We can look at comparisons for educators who select the same achievement measures, but we have chosen, and when I say we, I mean the broader we in terms of the General Assembly, the department, everyone, to allow some flexibility in what options are chosen within that specific 15% component.
Chairman Reagan?
Thank you. And just for the record, can we now currently do a statewide comparison in that component?
I would say no. Excuse me. Thank you, Chairman. I would say no because there's too much variance in what's selected. We could look at a single component and say all of the teachers who are selecting this component in this grade level, yes, we can, but we couldn't do a meta sort of comparison of every teacher in the state. We could just compare those who've selected like measures.
Thank you very much. I personally find that disconcerting in that we should be able to compare across the state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No further questions?
Thank you,
back
Chairman.
in session. Chairman Haston, you're recognized for a comment.
Thank you. One thing I will say is that, the two tests that you'll be able to use, or they would be able to use from from summative, would be the state-adopted benchmark assessment or the universal screener approved by the state board. So that will be apples to apples, that it will be something that will be consistent across the state. The other thing is that we all know students, and we know students that were better at formative and some that are better at summative. This just allows a way for teachers to be able to capture that student that may be better, that has a little bit better aptitude for formative assessments rather than summative. That's with that. I'll just be glad to answer any other questions.
Upon seeing no questions for the chairman, any objection to the question? Upon seeing none, all those in favor of moving House Bill 1860 on to full ed, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. You're on to full ed. Last one up, House Bill 0751 by Chairman Moody has been rolled one to the special calendar. That concludes for today. Reminder that last calendar is next week. We will try to push through everything next week and clean us up so we can close this committee next week. Without any objection, we are adjourned.